Grab your pre-workout and turn up that volume. It is time for a new episode of the Powerlifter's Den with your host, Cam Smith. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Powerlifter's Den. I'm your host, Cam Smith, and today I wanted to bring on one of the best female raw benchers of all time and an overall great powerlifter. Jen, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, hello. Thank you for including the powerlifter part. I'm Jen Thompson, coming here from Charlotte, North Carolina. Happy to be on here. Thank you.
Awesome. So I know recently you just had a competition. I heard things went pretty well. So why don't you tell everybody what your best lifts are, including your bench?
Well, only one thing went well, and that was my bench press. Everything else was shit, just so you know. I had one glimmering moment. But overall, my best competition squat's a 352, my best bench is a 327.5, and my best deadlift is a 457.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people you're obviously well known for your bench, but people don't realize that you're also a pretty well-rounded powerlifter. You have great lifts and other lifts too. So
I got 4 world titles in powerlifting. You know, you got to have something more than a bench to have that.
Yep. And so I guess we'll start off by asking you about what kind of got you into powerlifting and when was your first competition?
I more just got into powerlifting, honestly, when I graduated high school and got into college. I just didn't want to get fat and out of shape because high school was over. That's basically how it happened. I was a distance runner in high school, and I used to run road races with my dad, but I never really loved running, but I kind of just did it as a keep in shape thing. So when I was introduced to weights, I was like, oh my God, this is so much better. So I really just fell in love with it. And just as a girl, I was real thin. I was stick kind of girl, runner, you know, no shape. And so when I was being introduced to powerlifting or just really weight training, they were like, well, if you do this, you know, you'll get some shoulders and a butt and some pecs and some boobs. So you should try this. And that was kind of like, all right, let's give that a go. And so I just kind of mucked around with it, honestly, from like 18 to mid 20s, you know, just sort of trained with some friends. Our roommates had a home gym in our basement before home gyms were like cool. This was back in the 90s, you know? Yeah. And it was just kind of like every evening at 5 o'clock, everyone showed up and we hung out and trained, and it was just a lot of fun, but I wasn't like training for anything particular. I just sort of enjoyed it, and I'd kind of fall in and out of it. But then in 1999 was my very first competition. I was 27, I think.
And what federation was that in?
It was USA Powerlifting. I think it was right when they had just split from the ADFPA. I honestly didn't know anything about powerlifting or the feds. You went into the magazine. There was Powerlifting USA magazine, and you just looked in the back for upcoming competitions, and then you would like fill out entry form and mail it in with your check.
I mean, honestly, that's probably easier than nowadays when there's so many federations. You have no clue where to even look for some people.
Yeah, so I just looked at it all, and a lot of them were all letters and stuff, and that one said USA Powerlifting. I thought, well, that sounds legit. I really, honestly, it was just luck. I mean, I just picked it, and it was, you know, we lived up in Michigan, and I think they had more of a presence up there, so it just kind of happened.
So when you went to that first meet, was it a solo mission, or did you kind of roll in with a group of people, or did you have a coach at the time?
Oh no, like I totally had no idea what was going on. My husband went with me, Donovan, and we didn't really know anything. I mean, he had been weight training for years. He'd learned how to weight train in the military. And so, but like I learned to deadlift like the night before. Like I'd never even done it before. Like it was definitely like let's. Well, we had gone to California for our honeymoon, and there was a bench press competition on Venice Beach. Oh. And so I went up and talked to some of the people up there, and I was like, hey, this is really cool. Like, how do I get into this? And so they were, telling me what to do. And so then a year later, I just signed up for it. And I thought, well, I'll give it a go. see how much fun this is.
Yeah.
And it was, obviously a big learning curve. I almost bombed out of my squats. Like the first one, like I missed high. The second one, I fell backwards into the spotter. He had to catch me.
Oh boy.
And then the third one, I think they were just being really nice and gave it to me because it was like, it was in a high school gym.
Yeah.
It was like, I think there was 2 women in the whole competition.
Oh, wow.
It was just very low key. So it was probably a good first one.
Yeah, and then so for going into your first meet, was was bench at the time still like one of your best lifts, or like what?
Yeah, I think I benched 250 something maybe,
Oh,
or
wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
2 something. Yeah, squatted 186. I only got my opener. I think I deadlifted like, I don't know, 305 or 315, something like that. But yeah, it was, I mean, when we started training, it was all about how much you bench. I mean, that was like the marker of how strong you were, and like legs were like a secondary thought. They were like the accessories. And then maybe you would get some like hack squats in or something, or use the machines. There was no squatting involved. So I mean, so my bench was definitely way better than everything, because it was fun, and it's all we really worked very hard at.
Yeah. So I guess kind of into your journey, like along the years, when did you, obviously you knew bench was like one of your best lifts. What kind of was like one of your first like major goals? I'm assuming maybe it was 300, or maybe a record at the time.
Yeah, like I did my first meet was a powerlifting meet, but I got into the bench only stuff right away because I was good at it. I didn't know the other things, and got to go to Worlds my very first year, which was pretty neat. I don't know. Like I always thought if I could get to 300, that would be really cool, but that seemed like a 20 years down the road kind of deal, like one day.
Yeah.
I think more I was just focused on breaking the current records and winning a world championships. That was really my goals. I didn't actually have a number in mind. Back then, it was all shirted stuff. There was no raw.
Yeah,
You know.
I was actually going to ask you, have you ever considered throwing on like a single ply or a multiply shirt? So did you ever compete in one back in the day?
That's all there was. Yeah. So like my very first meet obviously was raw because I didn't know anything about it. But then we met some people and they're like, yeah, because I was kind of like, why are these people walking around like mummies? Like I don't get what's going on here. And then then they I remember I got my very first Inzer shirt and I sent it back because I was like, this is fucked up, dude. Like it cut up my arms. Like I couldn't feel them, like what the hell? I mean, I'm sure the customer service was like, this lady's nuts. Like I returned it for like a bigger size because I'm like, people can't honestly want to wear this,
Yeah.
But I got schooled pretty early in it. So like I think my first 4 titles were in bench equipped. I did equipped lifting. I eventually got into all 3. I did that all the way till I think 2012. And then I gave it up for good once the raw movement came because that was way better.
Yeah. So what was your best bench in a shirt?
Oh, I was never really great at it, honestly. 331
Oh wow.
was the best. I was only getting 30-ish pounds out of my shirt, 35 pounds. And I knew like the other girls were getting like 100, but they had half my arm size. They were half my height and they were a little squishier.
Yeah.
So like I was really not getting a lot out of it. And part of it was my fault. I just didn't enjoy wearing it. So I didn't spend a lot of time in it. I was like, oh, this is bullshit. This sucks. So I'd put it on like a couple days before the meet and then see how it went.
Yeah. That's funny. So I know, I think if I was looking up, so you in your career, you're also a math teacher, correct?
Yeah, actually doing science now. But yeah, my first this is my 27th year teaching. My first, I think, 18 or 19 years were in math.
So, like as a teacher, like how many of your students, or what grade do you teach?
It kind of changes from year to year. I go all the way from middle school up to high school. Last year I had like 10th, 11th, and 12th. This year I have 6, 7, 8.
Do you ever have students that like recognize you for like your powerlifting?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I run a powerlifting club
Okay.
at our school. I coach kids in competition. So, I mean, they know that.
Hmm. I was gonna say it'd be kind of funny to be like, yeah, my teacher's Jen Thompson. So
Yeah, I get a little bit of that. Not a ton, like not as much as you probably would think. It's sort of like an afterthought. Or if they know I'm like, when they knew I was going off to raw nats, they wanted to know about it and
yeah,
thought it was cool. The best thing was like my new principal I have this year. She's like, my sister is such a fan of yours. Like she is so fangirling you, and she knew everything about me, and they follow all my Instagram and stuff.
that's funny.
And that was kind of wild. I was like, huh, okay.
Yeah, and then so I guess we can talk about a little bit about the powerlifting you run there. How long have you been doing that?
Oh gosh. A long time. I don't know. I think you do it for so long, like the years just sort of roll. I mean, it's probably been at least 10 years or so.
And so I know like high school powerlifting is big in Texas. Is it also relatively big in no?
No, I keep trying. I'm
Yeah.
trying very hard. But and Texas is probably an anomaly, but like in the South, it's all about football.
Hmm.
And I find like anytime I try to get stuff going, like the football coaches like don't want it. They're afraid you're going to steal their players or hurt them or teach them something they don't want you to teach them, or they just don't want to listen to some woman tell them what to do.
Yeah, it's
So
funny.
I've hit a lot of roadblocks.
Yeah, so it's funny because my defensive line coach from college, he's big into lifting. He's a very big advocate for it, and I was trying to like prep for a competition like to do. I think it was my first meet, and it was like right after the season, right before we got into our like training season of like when you actually try to grow. And he was like, "If you get hurt, I swear to God, I'm gonna kill
Uh-huh.
you." So
Yeah,
it is funny the
there's a lot of
disconnect.
that.
Yeah,
When in reality, it probably made you the better player that you were, you
yeah,
know?
absolutely. I mean, I think one of the biggest things I can pull from that is like the people who enjoy being in the weight room the most are the most successful football players.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah. So at Raw Nats, like, what was how was the prep going into it? Did you have any setbacks or any big like PRs or anything that you were really
Hmm.
excited for?
Yeah, I mean the training part was probably one of the most disjointed ones I've ever had. My mom got had some health problems and got sick, and she lives in Maine. I live in North Carolina, so I spent a lot of time flying back and forth helping her. So that's always messes with your training because you're not in your home space, and you're not with your people, and you're training in a weird gym that doesn't necessarily have what you need. And so that was a tough. And I had picked up I did some seminars and stuff, but I hadn't planned on being gone all that time prior and after. So it was really kind of all over the place. We had tried something different. Normally, we were doing an 8-day system where we do 2 days on, 2 days off.
Hmm.
And then so my oldest son is a senior this year, and this was an important baseball summer for his collegiate future.
Yep.
So we spent a lot of time traveling around with him to different baseballs and scouting and all that sort of stuff. So that we decided to change it to a 7-day system where we had weekends off so that
Hmm.
we could kind of accommodate his schedule. It turns out that doesn't work well for me. I just got a little bit overtrained. It was a little too much. We were trying to make some adjustments. So in reality, the training was not great, but I was hitting some massive PRs in my squat.
There we
So
go.
that, because we were actually getting, our thought process was we're getting actually more workouts within the 7 days opposed to the eight. We're hitting legs more often than the other way. So actually did see some good increase in my squat, but then my bench sort of suffered from overtraining with that. So there was kind of some give and take in it. But we ended up going right back to the 8-day, and it's way better for me.
Yeah. So I guess over the years, like, have you had to kind of adjust your training as you got older, or do you think you've kind of like spaced it out in a way that the longevity's held up?
I think I've always been just a little bit smart about it and really listening to my body, but I've definitely made a lot of adjustments. And I don't know if part of it is age or part of it is just injury related, and working around injuries and understanding what my body's capable post those injuries. So we've definitely like we do a lot less singles in our training and do a lot more doubles and triples now. the 8 day just seems to work really well. I still work the same intensity, I feel like, and we pretty much go, you know, almost all out every training cycle session. You know, like I don't like RPE 5, 6, 8, 9 or shit like that. I'm like at a constant 9.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I don't, you know, that hasn't changed as I gotten older. Maybe it's just a mechanism of that's how we've always trained, so my body can handle it that like that. Um, but I mean, we've definitely switched around like rep schemes, days, like accessories, things like that. Always trying to improve and tweak. And then I think too, you know, your just life changes. You know, when you're a parent, you have a career, you know, your job changes, your kids are getting older. You just have different responsibilities as you get older, and your training's got to adjust with that.
Yeah. And so I guess more on training is I remember seeing a video kind of about you doing static holds on bench. I'm still kind of unfamiliar exactly like the methods to apply them. You want to tell us about how you apply them to your training?
Yeah, I mean, we felt when we were in college, one of our friends was going through chiropractic school, and he spent a lot of time studying isometrics, and he was way into weight training. He never competed, but he loved weight training, and he's like, I really think we can apply this to our training. I think we'll see. You know, there wasn't a ton of studies at the time. Now there's more where isometrics have a positive influence over your concentric strength, especially with the bench press, especially uh, part female, but I think it helps with the male too. It's a lot of helping with those stability muscles
Mm-hmm.
and the taking it out. Positive is, you know, when you're in a competition, if you get a shitty handoff, you can handle it pretty well because you're used to doing those, you know, heavy holds. So that's a unforeseen plus. But the idea was to overload, but then use that method of static hold to increase concentric strength, but also working stability muscles. So we started just implementing that every other week. I used to do them actually when I first started competing. I would do it right before lifting because just, and not for like 15 seconds, but just for a few, just so that I could trick myself into thinking the weight wasn't as heavy, you
Yeah.
know, as it was when, because you know, I was in the beginning, I had a lot of mental, like, I was really struggling with the mental aspect of competing, you know?
Yeah.
And so that helped. So I actually used to do it like right before we would go out there, just to kind of rest my brain, like I can handle this much weight, so this isn't that bad. So there's a lot of, you know, mental trick in that.
Yeah.
But we've been doing them for years, and anyone that's tried them, they always message me and say this is, and I think for like, I don't know that it helps when you're a beginner because there's so much form and stuff, but once you're in it, you're always kind of looking for small things that can kind of give your bench a boost
Yeah.
or give yourself a gain. And this is definitely, I think, something easy to do that you see some good carryover.
Yeah, and like for me, I'm kind of a head case sometimes, and so
Hmm.
I think it would be a decent thing to try to apply. And kind of I guess the logic behind it is kind of like using a donut for a baseball bat, kind of like
Yes,
so. Yeah, so I
exactly.
guess my next question would be like, I know you're supposed to overload it, but like, what percentages usually do you go for?
Yeah, well, we do it on squat also. We call them walkouts,
Yep.
you know, so you're walking out super heavy weight and then doing the hold as well. I always say to start like at 120% over your 1 rep max. And that's weight that you can usually easily handle, no problem, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a good starting point. And then some of it, you know, you get better the more you do it, you can handle more weight. So usually we say about 120% over, and then, you know, we'll try to hold it for a good 15 seconds. And then if you can make that, then you increase next time and just keep going till you can't.
Yeah. So I guess do you ever use the weight releasers in bench training as well?
I haven't, just because no one's given me any. We've got bands and you know, different stability things that we do. I do find that interesting though, but I haven't gotten into it. No, have you?
I've used them I think once, but I don't use them as like a tool. The gym I
Uh-huh.
go to, we have just the weight danglers, so they don't
Uh-huh.
release at the bottom. But I'm sure
Got
I
you.
could figure out a way to make them fall off. But
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot with the bands, and it's a similar concept because we do the reverse bands also, where we hang them from a squat rack
yep.
and then down around it. So it's getting heavier as you pressing it, and you're overloading it with a crap ton of weight.
Yeah.
And the idea is working your speed. So, I mean, it's kind of the same concept.
Yeah, I feel like I do know reverse bands can be helpful. I feel like usually I'll do like board presses with bands at the top, so it's just like a
Hmm.
heavy lockout focus.
Yep.
And then occasionally I'll use like a slingshot, and I think now I'm going to try to get into learning like a shirt just so I can overload that,
Hmm.
so when I go back to a raw meet and I can handle that weight.
Yeah. Shirts are funny. I mean, I guess it depends on the shirt you get now, but they're so like way more than when I, did them. I actually did put one on a few years ago. My husband's like, just put it on and just see. And I did like half rep, and I was like, nope.
Yeah, the pressure is just insane.
The pressure, and then you have to, you to make it work for you, have to take it through the path of most resistance,
Hmm.
and that's a lot of pressure. Sometimes there's a lot of pain in your armpit, your tricep, and it's yeah, pressure. Yeah, that's good. So I'm like, you know what? I gave this up because I didn't enjoy it, and I think I'm just gonna keep it that way.
Yeah, I tried on like a loose single ply shirt once, and I couldn't
Yeah.
even touch 315 in my
No.
chest, and it was crazy.
No.
And then like
Yeah.
now they got the all the band shirts like the F8, and it's
Oh
just
yeah. Oh, that
and
stuff's just crazy, and I'm hoping it doesn't happen, but just there's I my gut feeling that tells me something very bad is gonna happen. Because I mean they're doing hundreds of pounds over what their body can normally handle.
yeah,
And granted, the shirt is taking quite a bit of it, but not all of it.
yeah. I mean, for like
You-
Jimmy Cole, like 1,400
oh,
pounds, like that's
it's
just
just nuts. And he's like passing out and shit when he's
yeah,
done that. I'm
yeah.
like, what are you doing?
It's so funny. There's like the different mindsets people have of training like that.
And you can't even put your hands on the bar yourself. You have to have someone put your hand on the bar because you can't physically do it yourself. I mean, to me, it just is mind-boggling. But whatever. It's fun. It's amazing.
Yeah,
Honestly, I mean, he is holding that weight for sure.
yeah. That alone is
Um,
crazy.
I just hope that nothing bad happens to
Of
him.
course.
Sending positive thoughts.
Yeah. Um. So I know you just competed, but what's kind of like your next step or next big goal for you?
So I'm signed right up for the Olympia, November 4th, because I actually signed up before Ron Nats was real disappointing for me outside of my bench.
Hmm.
And but when I first started lifting weights, bodybuilding was what you looked at,
Yeah.
that you didn't really hear about powerlifting. So in Muscle Fitness magazine, that was really the only fitness workout magazine, and I followed it religiously. They would put workouts in there, and you would try them. And the female bodybuilders at the time, Corey Everson and Linda Murray, were like my idols growing up because they were still like they kept their femininity, but they were badass and
Yeah.
muscular, And I named my dog after them. Like I just thought they were amazing, and it was all, And you would wait for the Olympia episode to come out in the magazine, to see who won. And so when they, put powerlifting in it, I thought I want to do that because I've always wanted to go, just because it just looked so cool, and it was like it was the it.
Yeah.
So even though it was only 5 weeks after Raw Nationals, I was like, I signed up for it, and then I had such a shitty squat and deadlift. I'm like, it's my redemption meet. I don't care. I only got 5 lifts in at Raw Nat, so I'm like, if I get 7 or 8 in, it's gonna be a better meet than what I just had. So let's go.
So for that meet, do you have any like specific goals, just want to hit some new PRs?
I want to hit some squat. I'm really more about my squat and my deadlift. I aged up into the next master's age group, so there's new records to be had.
Yep.
Um, but I really want in my open, I really want to get like a 515, 520 kg total, and I think I'm capable of doing that. So those are goals, but honestly, for this one, it's like I think I'll do it because I'm gonna have fun and there's no pressure.
There we go.
Just go out there and make sure you hit lifts is really it. And then it's always neat to do it on a stage in front of a ton of people with the crowd, and that always gets me really amped up. So and I have a bunch of friends that are coming, so it should be just fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've only done like local meets so far, so I'd
Hmm.
like to try to get to a point where I can go on some sort of stage. I was thinking like a XBC at the Arnold or just something like that, or just get my total up enough to where I can start getting invited to meets. So
Yeah, there's nothing like I always say it's like the closest I'll probably ever get to like being a rock star or something like that because you're especially the Arnold, you look out and it's just a sea of people, like people for miles, and they're the got the music and the announcers going crazy and people are yelling your name. Like
yeah,
I'm like, they know my name. They're yelling, "Go Jen, you got this." And I'm like, it's just the most amazing feeling. You feel like you got everyone in your corner, cheering you on. It's a special, special thing for sure to get to experience that.
yeah, that's what I love about the sport too, because it's one of the only sports where every single person in the room is cheering you on. Where
Yeah,
every other sport, it's always split, or like
yeah,
bodybuilding can be a little
hmm,
feisty sometimes.
sure. Well, even your competitors are
Ex-
cheering you on.
yeah,
You're going for a record, they're cheering you on to get that. They may be secretly in their head hoping you'll miss, but they're not going to say it out loud.
yeah, yeah. It's always like well, I want to win, but I also want to see them
Yeah,
succeed.
but
So
yeah, like if they hit this, it would be amazing. So you want to, celebrate in that with them.
yeah. So what? Obviously, you've done some pretty big meets. Do you have a favorite meet?
Oh, well, I always loved the Arnold, of course. I mean, years ago we went to New Zealand and we lifted in the Worlds there, and it was probably for sure is one of my most favorite times. It was probably the only time that we were treated as like professional type athletes, where we put up in a nice place.
That's awesome.
We were in a main town. We lifted in front of the town in a theater. Like we were on radio shows and
Oh, that's
stuff.
cool.
So that, and then it was just an amazing place to visit in anyway.
Yeah.
And I won, of course, so that made it good. But I just it was one of the a lot of times lifting in the IPF, especially the earlier years, like you'd fly somewhere and you'd be in the middle of nowhere, and like your hotel conditions were not good,
Yeah.
and it was not what you would expect like a world championships to be.
Hmm.
And so that was the first time where it was what you thought something like that would have been like. So that was awesome. And then our, USA Powerlifting Raw Nationals are just amazing because they're huge. So like for me, 67 and a half, there was 100 girls in my weight class.
That's crazy.
And so it took up an entire day of lifting and then the prime time and at night. And so you're at prime time and it's all the lifters during the day, they're cheering you on. It's just so cool. And then people recognize you and they want their picture with you and it just makes you feel so special. And
Yeah.
so, and they're so well run. I mean, the graphics and stuff going on behind you, the live stream. I mean, they really put a lot of money into making it a professional event. So I always thought our national events were way better than the world events.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so I've never competed in USAPL. I've mostly done RPS, and I just did
Hmm.
an IPA meet. So, what kind of drifted you towards competing USAPL into IPF?
Mostly just because I felt like it sounded like you were lifting for your country and it was the biggest one. And then with the IPF, I mean, there's hundreds of countries. So you're not going to a Worlds and lifting against like people from Canada and Mexico.
Yeah.
Like you're lifting legit against people from the top people from all over the world. There's like 50 different countries at, the Worlds. And a lot of the European countries, they're not allowed to lift in multiple federations. They only get one.
Hmm.
There's only one international federation and there's only one national. So you are lifting against the best of that country because they don't have like multiple ones like we do. So most of it was just being able to put myself in the most competitive position and see how well I can do there.
Yeah. Um, so I guess didn't so the USAPL just disconnected from the IPF not too long ago, right?
Well, we got kicked out. But I would say too, the drug testing was a big draw. The fact that they drug test a lot,
Yeah.
and their goal is to try to, there's always whatever, but their goal is to try to keep it as clean as possible, and they put a lot of money towards to that. So that was important to me
Yeah.
also.
I guess kind of going off that a little bit, what did you kind of have it set in stone, like when you first started, like I'm going to stay a natural lifter my whole career, or?
Yeah, it never encouraged me to do anything else, and mostly because probably because I was never in a position where it was even accessible or available. We lifted in our basement gym my whole life.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like we were at a gym and people were like, "Hey, if you tried this, you would get stronger," or anything. I just was never in that environment, and I was doing pretty good without it. So,
Yeah,
like, it
clearly.
just. And then I think too, like when I was growing up, it was a very much say no to drugs. It was really hit into us hard that you shouldn't be doing that. Now, like the landscape is much different.
Yeah.
There's tested and untested, and it's not as like seen as being something like illegal, and like it was when I grew up.
Yeah.
Like you were like riding the wrong side of the law, like if you were getting into that stuff. So showing my age some on that one, but just it just never occurred to me to do it, and it just wasn't in my face. It
Yeah.
wasn't around me anywhere. So no.
And then, so you mentioned you were training out of your basement. So tell us a little bit about where you train out of.
Well, it's just our home gym that my husband put together in the 80s, and we still have some of the same equipment. But back when he's a bit older than I am, he's about 7 years older than I am. So when he got out of the army and came back home, there weren't big box gyms like we have now. There wasn't there wasn't a gym on every corner. Every town had like a racquetball club with like maybe like a universal machine and a set of dumbbells. Like there
Yeah.
was no accessibility. So he and his buddies all worked and put their money together and made some of their equipment. And so we've always had that, and we've been able to obviously add to it, as we've gotten older, and stuff is way more. You can buy stuff
Yeah.
now. Like he will tell me, like when they first got it, you would walk into a store and they would have like floor samples of the machines, and you would point to which one you would want, and they would make it for you. Like there wasn't like
Yeah.
you didn't just take it home, you know. So yeah, it's a different sort of scenario there. So we've always, and it's always been that we've always had friends that lived with us like every day, like not necessarily people that are competing, but just neighbors and friends. It's always been like a fun time. We get together and get strong. So that's just, I think, probably why I stayed in it for so long, because it's enjoyable.
Yeah, I feel like so I have like I guess a mini garage gym. I don't have a lot. I have some stuff because like if it was in a pinch and I needed to lift, I could do it. It's mostly
Yeah.
just like if I don't have spotters, that's why I don't train at home. So I feel that's cool. I think like having that at least that safety aspect of it is obviously really important. So
Yeah, yeah. We did a lot of training at other gyms this summer because of our crazy schedule, and it really made, although it was fun, it made me appreciate, our equipment that we have is fairly good. And just being able to pick your own music and not having to wait for stuff or work in with people, it's all about you. And it's nice. It really made me have a whole new appreciation level for what we have available to us.
for sure, if you could pick like one piece of equipment from your gym that's like your absolute favorite, what would it be?
Well, aside the bench, of
Well, yeah.
course. I love our belt squat machine. I feel like that's probably contributed to a lot of my longevity, is the fact that I can squat a lot and not load up my spine, and we change our footing positions to hit different areas, of it. And so I feel like that's probably one of the best things that we've got. We have like a reverse hyper. I like that also.
Yep.
But the belt squat, I think, is what's going to keep me in it in the long run.
Which belt squat do you have?
We actually had one made. It was from a company out of South Carolina called State of the Arc,
Yep, I've heard
ARC.
of them.
Have you heard of them?
Yep.
Okay. So, belt squat machines are generally huge.
Yeah.
And our basement was it's a converted garage is basically what it is. So, and it was a one car garage, so it's not big.
Yeah.
So we were able just to give him the dimensions of the size that we could handle, and he just made it right to that. So that was pretty cool.
So with you said you change foot positions. Do you do any other like do you ever do a variation on it? Do you have like band pegs on it? Do you ever utilize that or anything?
No, usually we save the bands for the straight bar.
Hmm.
Like I said, it's pretty small, the belt squat machine.
And then obviously, so obviously the bench is your favorite, and the belt squats would be like your second.
Yeah.
What's your least favorite? Is it
Oh,
the GHR?
it is. I hate that thing. Oh my God, it's horrible. It's just so painful. Like every rep sucks
Yeah,
about it. And then I try to, load them up with the weights and stuff, and I'm like, oh,
yeah,
horrible. And like you do a lot of reps on them too. Like it's not like three or four, you're doing like eight. You
yep,
get to like four, you're like, shit, I got four more.
yeah.
And I have to talk myself out of quitting early.
When I did a meet back in April, at the beginning of the prep I tried to start doing them and I couldn't do a single one.
Yeah.
And then I mean the learning curve was quick, and then I kind of got up there, but you never get over that feeling of your hamstring feeling like it's gonna tear at any moment.
Yes. Yeah. And weirdly, my calves always cramp up when we're doing those, and I can't wear knee sleeves. If I wear knee sleeves while I do it, like it's just game over. Like
Yeah.
my calves are cramped and I can't move. So it is kind of funny because normally we do them after squats and things like that. So you're usually pretty fatigued by the time you get to them.
You do them after a squat day.
Hmm.
Do you, so what do your accessories look like on a deadlift day then? Are they more back focused?
Yeah, we'll do back and biceps, and then we'll do like Romanians, rack pulls, some overweighted stuff, or wagon wheels, things like that. Yeah, it's all back and bicep focused outside of like some deadlift variations.
So on the 8 day schedule, what does the two on two off look like?
Well, we'll start with bench because that's the best one. You always start with the best one.
That's why I start with
So we have like,
squats.
I know, mine completely reversed because the bench gets me to the squat day. If I had to start with squats, I may never make it. So usually I have like the bench day, the squat day, 2 days off, and then we do like probably like a bench accessory. We call it our tricep shoulder day, but it's usually when we're doing like lockouts or boards or close grips, things like that, with some other tricep shoulder. And then our last day is a deadlift back and bi day.
Yeah. So yeah, I usually do the a 4 day. So I'm doing Sunday squat, Monday bench, and then I'll deadlift on Wednesday, and then bench again on Friday because my bench is my worst lift. I was stuck at like 340 for like probably the past 2 or 3 years. Had some shoulder and chest injuries, so
Mm,
and then finally just broke that and hit 360 in my meet a few weeks
nice.
ago. So
There you
I'm
go.
hoping it's up from there because
Keep going.
yeah, I'm really trying to get to the 400 because like my squat and my deadlift's kind of a shit show right now. But my squat's just been going up and up for years, so I'm not worried
Yeah.
about that. That's why. And then during COVID, I had a squat rack in my dad's basement. And have you ever heard of the Smolov program?
Sounds familiar, but I don't know what it is.
So it's like a high volume squat program, and I was squatting in
Okay.
my dad's basement like 3 days a week, just
Hmm.
all during quarantine. So it was just
Yeah,
it was a dark time, but it definitely brought up my squat.
yeah.
I think it brought up my
Yeah.
squat and deadlift like 50 pounds each over a summer. Yeah,
Wow.
so I almost want to do that for bench, but not sure if my shoulders can hang in there
Yeah, the
anymore.
upper body is tough because it just can't really handle, I feel like, the volume that your lower body can handle. Um,
I feel like I'm the opposite. I feel like, well, for me, deadlifts just fry me like crazy.
mhm.
Squats I could do all day, but bench I could also do 3 or 4 times a week probably. Or maybe I'm
Mm,
just not training heavy enough. So,
maybe. I certainly couldn't do that.
so or another thing I saw was that you have the Airwave mouth guard. What
Yeah.
do you want to talk about that? Kind of explain. Was it something that you were using before and then kind of got approached by the company, or vice versa?
Yeah, I always used a mouth guard, particularly on the three lifts. I used to wear the Under Armour Bite. I think they stopped making it, but I had cracked through those a couple of times. And the Airwave just messaged me and they're like, "Hey, can we send you, our mouthpieces and will you just tell us what you think?" And so honestly, they sent it to me and it probably sat on my shelf for 3 months before I even I was like, oh, okay, I'll give this a try. um, yeah, it is very much like the Under Armour bike, but just a little bit better. There's just a little more substance to it. They have a couple different kinds. They have one that kind of the CrossFitters use, but to me, I don't even know why you bother with it because there's barely anything to it. But the endurance one I like, just because it gives you enough support, but doesn't feel like something like you have your mouth is overflowing with a mouth guard. You can bear, you can tell it's there, but it's not giant, which is what I like. It's just the bottom piece. I like that. And so actually I started using it on all my lifts now because it creates so much good tension in my jaw into my neck and helps me create pressure that I noticed when I started using it on my incline bench, my decline bench, even in my curls, they were better. I had more pressure, more power. So actually I wear it on every single lift now.
Is it legal in all federations or?
As far as I know, yeah. It's just, the dentist will thank you for
Yeah.
not cracking your teeth, having something in there. But it just, it's just it's such an easy thing to do to have a little bit of return for doing barely anything,
Yeah, and I feel like
so I
strongmen
don't
have
know why
been.
you wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I feel like strongmen have been using it for years too. I'm surprised.
Yeah.
I feel like I've rarely ever seen any powerlifters using it, so maybe I'll get one.
You should. You should. I've seen people use the new wave or new age one, I think, but I don't. To me, it's big. I don't like. I don't want anything distracting me from the task at hand. And I just I don't ever. I don't ever take sponsorship from a company that aren't aligned with my morals and ethics and beliefs.
Yeah.
And I spent some time meeting them, getting to know them, and wanting to know what their goals were and their paths. And they're just good people. So I don't, I'm not sponsored by anyone that I feel good about. I feel like they're either helping our sport or helping our community, or just their vision is there. They're not there just to make money. I mean,
Yeah.
of course, that's
Well,
the end game, but the quality portion is there, and so that's why I signed on with them, was because I really like what they're doing. I mean, they're really trying to improve what they have. They're really giving back to CrossFit. They're getting into powerlifting, and then of course strongman. And they treat you with respect. So
that's awesome. Yeah,
yeah.
I think brand loyalty is important only when the morals align, and I think that's for someone of your caliber who has a pretty big audience. It's definitely important to make sure you're preaching the right stuff.
Right. Well, I get offers every day.
Yeah.
People want me to wear their stuff or do this shit or that. And I do think about that. And I'm like, I would feel so bad if I promoted something and someone tried it and was like, this is shit. And Jen told me to buy it. And I always think too, this is not my main job. I do it because I enjoy it
Yeah.
and it's fun. I don't need it. So, I don't need to sell my soul for a few bucks.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
Yeah, and kind of touching on your influence, what's kind of been your experience maybe with female powerlifters? Kind of, I don't know, maybe reaching out to you or helping get them into the sport, or.
Oh yeah, it's been. I mean, I rise in powerlifting. We're rising big in numbers, but in particularly in the female. And honestly, surprisingly, in the older female category, we have tons of women in their 40s and 50s getting into the sport.
That's awesome.
I think some of it is when I first started, it was still very much a male dominated sport, and everyone was really afraid if you picked up that weight, you would turn into this gargantuan man. You would lose all feminine, aspects to your body, and that, it's all over. So now we've really kind of, I think, smashed the walls of that concept with all the wonderful examples we see on social media of strong women. So I think it's neat because I think finally, the women my age are like, oh, I can do this and get strong at my age and not, lose my femininity. So I think that's pretty cool that we're seeing that. But I do some seminars. I had a group called Iron Sisters that we were doing some female girl weekends, all centered around powerlifting, but also just the community aspect of it and identifying, women important things about powerlifting. I mean, men and women are different,
Yep.
so there are definitely some things that affects females that don't affect males, and I'm sure vice versa. But that kind of dwindled, and now I've done a few things with Sisters of Iron, which is not the same thing. Ironically, it's a whole different company with different people. Um, but yeah, I do a lot of that. Like University of Michigan's powerlifting team just reached out to me and want me to come up
That's awesome.
and work with them a little bit. And then of course I work with Midland University at the collegiate level. So I don't specifically work with females because I think it is a co-ed sport, but I do enjoy helping empower women and getting them into it, and letting them know that they can do it and you will be welcome.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because I remember one of my earlier guests, she was talking about when she first started lifting. It was, and you, a lot of weight rooms just would have signs that said no women allowed.
Oh,
So obviously it's great to see the sport growing as a whole, but I think it's really important to make sure it is truly a co-ed sport. So
yeah, it is. And you see that even like, I kind of feel like powerlifting similar to tennis. Like our prize packs are the same. It doesn't matter if you're a male or woman. And I think they're highlighted equally,
yeah,
where you're talking about prime time or with the prime positions or when they're lifting. The women get an equal card to men because we have an equal draw,
yeah,
and I can understand if nobody was watching it, maybe that wouldn't be the case, but I think the last I checked, I think our membership for USA Powerlifting is getting close to 50-50 men and women. It's still a little bit more on the men, but I think it was like 55-45 or something like that.
oh wow, I didn't
So,
even know there was a difference. And
yeah. So, I mean, when I first started, there was barely any of us. So,
yeah,
like to see it transform into that is pretty darn cool.
yeah, and it is kind of funny too, and it's nice that the stigma of like women getting bulky is like kind of dying because it's funny you look at it, you're like, well, it's hard for us to get bulky, so it is great to see the evolution of the sport. So, and you're a great advocate for it.
Thank you. I think too, like what's nice about powerlifting is you sort of embrace all body types,
Yeah,
So there's no, we embrace the thick with the two C's, and the peach, and all that sort of stuff is as we can talk about it now and celebrate it and be happy about it. Where before, you just women were supposed to get really thin
yeah.
and look kind of like those thin models walking down the runways, and now we can embrace that all shapes and sizes are pretty darn awesome. So I love that.
Yeah, that's great. So I guess we'll kind of wrap things up here. I like to ask all my guests before we end if you could give one piece of advice to a new powerlifter or someone entering their first meet. One, what would it be?
Well, I think most of it is, I think right now, because of social media and just technology and stuff, we're a want it now sort of society. And I think powerlifting in particular is a long game sport. The longer you into it, the better you get, no matter how long that is. You're never going to be your best on that first meet or when you first start. So you kind of have to tamp that attitude down right away and realize that this is a learning game. So put a lot of time into correct form. That will serve you for the rest of your career if you can get the basics and understand that. I think also like auto regulation, understanding your body and its limits, when to push, when to not, and a lot of that just becomes with experience and time and training. But then surrounding yourself by positive people that are going to encourage you, but also hold you accountable.
Yep.
If you're squatting high, they're going to tell you,
Yep.
But like as far as getting into your first meet, like I hear so many people like, I'm not ready yet. My numbers aren't where they want them to be. Your first meet is never going to be a great one
Mm-hmm.
ever because there's such a huge learning curve.
Yep.
So I encourage like a mock meet in the gym. And then even your very first one, like give yourself a break, like go into it for fun, have some low level goals and maybe some higher level goals, but understand that you're being a student of the sport at this point, and you're learning what the referees are looking for, the timing, how to plan your first, second, third lifts. I mean, there's just so much to it. And then, even your second meet will be a little better than the first. And I do think it's good to do quite a few. because you just learn so much every time you do it, and then space them out as you kind of get better and more into it. But no, it's long term. It's not a right now, and it's not, your training isn't about what you can post on social media the next day. I mean, that shouldn't be your goal to hitting certain numbers or certain things. Once you start wrapping yourself and identifying yourself with who you are on social media and posts is when you're not going to be your best self, your best athlete. So, kind of tamping that down is always a good idea.
That's awesome. That's some great advice. So, I guess before we end things, if you could just let them know where they can find you on Instagram, or if you
Oh
have anything
yeah.
else where you want to plug.
Sure. Well, Instagram's Jen Thompson 132. I have a subscriber program also, which I'd like to try. I post a lot of good things on my Instagram, and then I kind of post things that are kind of side thoughts to my subscribers, or they can ask me to post them stuff. It's $4.99 a month. But I am really working on my YouTube channel, which is 132 pounds of power. I finished a quick bench series where I just basically broke down the bench into tiny pieces, like little 3-minute videos. So if you just want to know about grip, if you just want to know about arch, if you want to know takedown, you can just watch a quick video. And I'm working on the squat series now. So that's good. I have a TikTok, mostly that's Jen Thompson 132. I usually post funny shit on there. Not most of that. Not most of that's educational. Most of that's just trying weird shit in the gym or
Yep.
stuff like that. And then I have a program. Is thompsonsgym.program.app. I'm getting ready to load it onto Apple, but you can go to the website. But any program I use, I have it on there.
That's awesome.
So you can use what I use to get strong, but I also have like my youth programs on there, beginner program. I'm starting to work on a master's program, training program on there. And then if you're on my program, you're in my community, and I have like an amazing community of almost 200 people that post videos and give feedback and celebrate, our ups and our downs. And so pretty much I'm everywhere. Twitter, name it, I'm there. Jen Thompson 132.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time for coming on today. It was a pleasure.
Oh, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too.